Today, I have a super interesting topic to discuss, so if you love large-scale battle theories or Warframe, please stay and listen to today's topic, which is of course, who would win in an all-out war between the Grineer and the Corpus. Now I know the Corpus and Grineer are already technically at war, however, this video will be erasing the Tenno from the equation, which will allow us to truly award a victor in this war. If you're unfamiliar with Warframe, the Tenno are the protagonists in the game, and who we play as. Their job is to essentially ensure that no civilization in the origin system, the place the game resides in, gets too powerful and subjugates and controls all other people in the system. The Tenno are ridiculously overpowered and can literally travel through dimensions, manipulate time, revive the dead, and that's just scratching the surface of what they can do. Due to their insane hacks, they've been able to ensure a balance of power between the Grineer and Corpus relatively easily, keeping either from encroaching on each other's territory in a serious way. In the entirety of Warframe's existence, there's only been one example of the Grineer taking territory from the Corpus, and that was because they were actually assisted by the Tenno and could deal with them behind the scenes. This is why removing them from the equation could create one of the most violent and aggressive wars in fiction, particularly due to the insane aggression of the Grineer. Along with removing the Tenno from this equation, we'll also go ahead and grant each civilization all of their leaders that were slain by the Tenno, meaning that individuals like Talregger and the Sarja are still alive. On top of this, we're assuming this battle happens before the New War, because if it happened after, well, it would be a pretty underwhelming battle. Alright, before we can really talk about who would win, we need to introduce our two fighters. The Grineer Empire is a dictatorial, militaristic society, with their supreme rulers being the Twin Queens, a duo of Orichan whose orders go completely unquestioned in their empire, with all Grineer bowing to them and worshipping them. Unfortunately for the rest of the system, the Queens believe in a rapid expansion and aim to conquer the entirety of the Origin system, which causes them to constantly attack others with their massive clone army. While the Queens rule the Grineer, they are not Grineer themselves, with the actual Grineer that make up the Empire all being clones. Grineer are actually all clones of a clone, and due to unsafe killing practices, most Grineer are plagued with terrible diseases, short lifespans, and disfigurement issues. While these cloning practices are unsafe, they also ensure Grineer loyalty to the Queens, with obedience to the Queens literally being biologically inserted into every Grineer clone's genome, which is the reason most Grineer are willing to charge to their deaths in unwinnable battles. For right now, this is really the only overview you need of the Grineer for this video, because if I tell you any more, I'll be getting into things that I already plan to say later on that may or may not help them in a space war against the Corpus. The Corpus are a bit harder to actually describe, due to the vast differences between how different Corpus societies might run. Unlike the Grineer, instead of an all-powerful dictator, the Corpus are ran by a board of directors, who earn a spot of being one of the 14 members by having immense wealth and riches within the Corpus world. The most powerful seat of the 14 available belongs to the chairman, who is currently Freud Beck. And while he has immense power, the other 13 board members run their societies independently of his, with it being somewhat uncommon that they have to directly answer to him. This division has caused a great amount of infighting among the Corpus, with all of the most powerful members trying to backstab and gain a step up on each other. However, this competition in their completely capitalistic society has led to them becoming extremely advanced, with leaders constantly competing with one another to develop the new most powerful weapon, the new most effective source of energy, or even the next best way to travel around space. Their drive for development and success has also led some Corpus leaders to either clone soldiers like the Grineer, or create breeding camps of individuals with desirable traits to rapidly increase their population and by extent their military. At different points, both of these reasons are implied as the way the Corpus have so many soldiers, and it wouldn't be surprising for different Corpus leaders to have different ways of producing their military. Like I said for the Grineer, I believe this is a good enough explanation of their society without getting into anything that I'll talk about later. Obviously, one of the most important things to consider when civilizations fight is how large their standing army is and what kind of weapons the members in said army have access to. For this section, we'll just be talking about the forces that these armies have within the atmosphere of planets, and not their actual space armada, which will be in a different section. When it comes to raw numbers, both the Corpus and Grineer excel due to the breeding farms and cloning that I mentioned before, leading to both armies being absolutely humongous, massive, biggest armies you could ever imagine. While we can't be 100% with the numbers of their armies, lore would lead me to believe that the Grineer do have a considerably larger army due to how rapid their cloning process is, which also leads to their soldiers having a large amount of genetic issues. While the Grineer have the advantage in sheer numbers, let's take a look at each of the faction's individual soldiers and their equipment. Grineer troops are most commonly equipped with a Grataka machine gun, plasma grenades, cleavers, deployable shields, and ferrite armor. More powerful Grineer soldiers, such as heavy gunners, have more powerful alloy armor along with a Gorgon, which is a heavy machine gun. I'm not going to list every single Grineer unit here, just note the majority of them have some sort of thick steel alloy or ferrite armor and only use kinetic weapons, and everything they use shoots bullets typically. Besides for the bombards, napalms, and scorchers, who use explosives or flame-based weapons. The Grineer also have a variety of melee soldiers. Most of these lack the ferrite and alloy armor and are literally just bullet shields, so they aren't really worth mentioning in my opinion. Finally, the last unit of importance belonging to the Grineer are the ghouls. Ghouls are quickly developed clones used from the excess resources from creating standard clones. They are extremely aggressive, kill everything in sight, and can be deployed extremely quickly, usually as forward soldiers meant to die out before sending the bulk of their army in. Now let's talk about the Corpus soldiers, guys. I like the Corpus soldiers, they look cool. The average Corpus crewman uses an energy rifle called the Dara, and instead of wearing armor, they have shield generators on their suit that deflect incoming damage. They use plasma grenades as well. Along with the Corpus crewmen, Corpus also mass-produced machines called MOAs, who have built-in shield generators and use a plasma rifle as their primary weapon. Similarly to the Grineer, the Corpus also have heavier, more powerful units that use explosive weapons along with some fire as well. On top of that, the most powerful Corpus units have both shield generators and alloy armor, making them extremely powerful, with their defenses nearly impossible to crack for anyone besides the Tenno. Now we understand the basic equipment and standards of the average Corpus and Grineer soldier, we need to decide who's stronger. And in all honesty, I have to go with Corpus on this one. Lore-wise, speaking for this entire video, guys, lore is what we're looking at, not actual in-game functions. We are completely looking at lore here. So lore-wise, shield generators are just so much more powerful than ferrite and alloy armors, which isn't necessarily true in-game. It's not true, like I said, not really in-game. But in lore, shields tend to deflect non-energy weapons with ease, which is the Grineer's primary source of damage. Of course, with enough bullets, the shields could be worn down, but Corpus energy weapons are just so much more effective towards the Grineer weapons are towards the Corpus. So while Grineer definitely have the advantage number-wise, soldier to soldier and lore the Corpus are far more superior, with their soldiers being better equipped with much more advanced weaponry to use. Of course, foot soldiers aren't the only sort of military that these factions have access to. Now we need to talk about each of these factions' war machines. The most powerful Grineer war machine, at least on the ground, is the Thumpers, which are huge mobile defense platforms armed with massive cannons and pneumatics ground pounders. I don't know what that word is, just know they cause many earthquakes wherever they go. The most powerful Corpus war machine is the Prophet Taker Orb, a huge spire-like creature that absolutely shits on absolutely anything Grineer have literally ever created when it comes to warfare on a planet. This is by far the most powerful machine in-game, lore-wise, and in actual practice when fighting it. It's annoying as fuck. While there only seems to be one in existence, the one Prophet Orb could probably destroy pretty much every Thumper in existence, which causes me to give the overall edge of ground forces to the Corpus. While I haven't mentioned every single unit and machine that both factions use, the general comparison is that the Corpus are stronger individually, but the Grineer are just more numerous with whatever they might have. In the end, for this section, I have quality over quantity, and when it comes to army strength alone, without taking into account tactics or leadership, I have to go with the Corpus. Don't turn off the video though, Grineer lovers, because me myself being a Grineer enjoyer, you know, I have a very positive feeling moving forward for how the Grineer might handle this setback. I wasn't sure how to start this section, so I'll just come out and be blunt. The leadership structure in the Grineer and the leaders that they have in power is likely the reason that their weaker army would probably dominate the Corpus. Before getting into the arousing strengths of the Grineer, let's talk about the huge issue with Corpus leadership. As I said earlier, the Corpus are united under a board of directors, a board that absolutely hates each other for the most part, and that's a huge problem. Due to the constant infighting, Corpus leaders might not present a united front against a Grineer threat. I mean, we literally saw that issue in the battle for Mars. The Corpus didn't fully back Alad because of how fucking annoying he is, and it led to them losing the entire territory of Mars to the Grineer, with Tenno help of course. But that's just an example of how fractured the Corpus are, and I suspect that'll be a big issue during an all-out Grineer invasion. I mean, why would one of the board members send their army over to protect another Corpus that they genuinely hate? The Grineer absolutely does not have this problem. Since their military is ran by a singular general, with less powerful generals completing his orders, the Grineer is completely united, and different generals will assist each other where it's needed without question. That means that while the Grineer already outnumber the Corpus, the number difference will likely appear even larger in battle because of how the Grineer will attack and defend as one huge force, while the Corpus leaders will only look out for themselves. On top of already being disjointed, the Corpus leaders are elected based on wealth and power, and not actual leadership ability, while essentially every single Grineer leader has risen through the ranks by being effective military minds and leaders of men. Nefanyo, Ford Beck, and Alad V are the three leaders of the Corpus we interact with the most, and none of them really have any experience leading a military, and in all honesty, only Ford Beck has any business leading anybody, with Alad V and Nefanyo being absolute disasters at it. On the other side of things, the Grineer have a military genius in Sargus Rook, the literal smartest man in the system with Tal Regger, the literally immortal Captain Vor, and the relentless and respected Vahek. I mean, when you compare the leaders of the Corpus to the Grineer, it's literally the fattest blowout of all time. When it comes to tactics, the Grineer have a pretty simple but effective strategy. Send in hordes of ghouls, then follow up with hordes of standard Grineer troops in order to take over large amounts of land and eliminate enemy armies. Basically, numbers and non-stop pressure is how the Grineer win battles. Corpus strategy, on the other hand, is sort of confusing. Since they have so many different leaders, strategy is different from sector to sector, and Corpus soldiers aren't always on the same page. So when it comes to tactics, I'm not really sure what to tell you about the Corpus. I honestly just don't have any idea what their standardized tactics are. I mean, I don't know what they do. On top of that, the Grineer are constantly taught military strategies from birth and have a deep understanding of Grineer tactics and the costly battles of war, with their entire purpose in life to serve the Queen or do battle. Corpus soldiers aren't this dedicated to their commanders, and their purpose is to become wealthy, not die, which causes the average Corpus to generally value their own life more than the average Grineer, which further causes them to be less willing to just throw themselves at their enemies. Clearly, in this section I'm giving the edge to the Grineer. Not even the edge, I'm giving the entire damn table to the Grineer in this section. The leadership of the Corpus is just an absolute shambles, while the Grineer present a united front with powerful military minds. Military and leadership isn't all that matters, because if you don't have the resources to supply them, it really doesn't matter much. So now we'll be talking about what planets each civilization owns, and what resources are available to them because of those holdings. Let's start with the Corpus, and see what planets and territories they hold. They hold Venus, Phobos, Jupiter, Europa, Neptune, and Pluto. Grineer hold Mercury, Earth, Mars, Ceres, Saturn, Uranus, and Sedna. When comparing the list of planets that both factions have access to, they appear pretty equal, and that's because they honestly are pretty equal. Obviously, even in Warframe, the Earth is a crown jewel with maybe the most resources, but it's also one of the least firm grasps that Grineer have on a planet. They have constant issues there, from fighting the Forest, to fighting the Steel Meridian, and fighting the Ostrom. So even though it's a prize, it's also one of the craziest planets. Basically, I went on the rant to say this. Even though it seems like the Grineer have a lot more resources, because of the value of their planets, it's actually rather close. I'm not really sure who to mark as superior resource-wise, so I'll go ahead and say it's just a tie. Especially since the Grineer have access to resources they need to make their weapons and army, and the Corpus have access to the resources they need for theirs. So I mean, they're both going strong here. One advantage the Grineer do have here, however, is their Kuva Fortress, which is a massive, extremely powerful fortification that rotates around the galaxy inside a giant asteroid. If this fortress happened to float around a Corpus planet, it could easily bombard it from insane distances, as well as deploy constant bombers and ships from its location. Not to mention, to fully defeat the Grineer and their queens, the Corpus will have to find and invade this base, which will also be extremely difficult. While the fortress does give the Grineer the slight edge empire size and position wise, I don't feel like it's a big enough difference to really hand over this whole section to the Grineer. So when it comes to size and resources available, I'll just go ahead and say it's an extremely close match. I doubt that this war will be decided by a lack of resources on one side. A diplomacy section might be surprising to you guys. You might be thinking, Cook, it's an all-out war. Why would the Grineer and Corpus even send diplomats to each other? And well, the answer is, they wouldn't. In this section, I'll be talking about independent factions in the Origin system, who aren't Grineer or Corpus, and how they would react to this massive war, and who they might side with. And well, to be pretty blunt, I'm not sure if there's a single faction that would sign on with the Grineer. This is due to the Grineer's policy of either murdering every non-Grineer, or enslaving every non-Grineer, and honestly, it's usually a combination of both. You know, get a little slavery in, then boom, plasma grenades up the ass. Even factions like the Slayers United, who literally only exist to fight back against the corruption of the Corpus, would likely unite with the Corpus in order to fight off the Grineer. Since, you know, they're just slaves under the Corpus, they would be, you know, slaves and also dead under Grineer rules, so there's a pick the lesser evil, guys. Now, for the most part, most factions that would be involved in this war wouldn't make a huge difference, especially since a lot of them only function at all because of help received from the Tenno. And since the Tenno aren't involved here, that would mean they wouldn't really be factions. That leaves the initial 6 factions who I believe are strong enough and large enough to actually move the needle. The parent sequence is already a Corpus-based faction and would provide tons of wealth and resources and assistance to the Corpus in battle. So that's just, you know, a give me there. The Steel Meridian literally exists to oppose the Grineer and have been instituting guerrilla warfare tactics against the Grineer for quite a while. So, I mean, of course they're going to side with the Corpus. You know, on top of already being a problem for the Grineer currently, the Steel Meridian being based on Earth will cause even more issues for the Grineer supply chain, with one of their strongest opposers literally occupying one of their planets. The new Loka are also already at war with the Grineer and view them as a disgusting creation that needs to be put down. They also attack the Grineer often on Earth. The Red Veil and Steel Meridian literally share a base of operations, so we know that the Red Veil will constantly attempt to assassinate important Grineer targets. The Arbiters of Hexus are the only faction of the original 6 that don't already just target the Grineer. However, based on their beliefs, it probably won't take too much convincing to get them to side with the Corpus in this war. The only faction of the original 6 who I believe wouldn't side with the Corpus is of course Cephalon Suda, who tend to stay out pretty much every fight in the system and simply record what happens. So besides for the Cephalons, every major faction would side with the Corpus, which is absolutely nothing to scoff at. I mean, these factions have some real power, and without the Tenno involved, will likely control the different relays that could provide further support to the Corpus. There's tons of other factions besides for the 6 syndicates, but I'm not going to go through and mention all of them. Just know that literally all of them would support the Corpus, because no matter how bad the Corpus may be, it can't be worse than literally just dying or being tortured. So when it comes to gaining allies in diplomacy, the Corpus already are so heavily the favorites that this section probably shouldn't have even existed, because anyone thinking that anyone would side with the Grineer are absolutely insane. So W Corpus here. I've saved their fleets as the last thing to discuss, because in all honesty, in space warfare, your spaceship fleet are probably the most important thing you could have, or at least they're one of the most important things. Now, in all honesty, it's pretty hard to compare the fleets of these two factions, because we never really see them in action against each other, or really in action at all. The most we've seen from the Grineer galleons is them shooting spread missiles at our railjacks, and from Corpus flagships, we've seen them shoot powerful large beams of energy at sentient warships to no avail. So based on those two things, I honestly don't have a great idea whose ships are stronger, but I'm leaning towards the Corpus, and I guess I'll explain why now. First off, Warframe writers have made it very clear that Corpus technology is superior to Grineer. I imagine that the design of their ships include a huge amount of this more advanced technology, from better navigation to more powerful weapons. I mean, the Corpus beam cannon we see during the New War quest is far superior to a weapon than anything we ever see a galleon produce. While the cannon wasn't powerful enough to destroy a full-blown sentient ship, I imagine they're more than powerful enough to destroy anything that the Grineer can produce, especially since all things Grineer seem to lack shield technology. So far, you might be thinking that the Corpus have an advantage in this battle, superior military, more allies, and better ships, but let me be honest now. What if I told you it was all just pointless yapping, because I have yet to address the one thing that makes this battle completely unwinnable for the Corpus: the Fomorian fleet. The Fomorians are by far the strongest ship in Origin space. You know, ignoring the sentience, I guess, maybe they're not as strong as the sentient ships. But Fomorians are pretty damn strong, and in all honesty, could probably give a majority of their ships a run for their money as well. The Fomorian battleships are so powerful that when they were first introduced to conquer the Corpus, the Tenno had to fully mobilize to destroy them and protect the Corpus from certain destruction. Fomorians are so dangerous that they managed to destroy several Tenno relays, with essentially every Tenno in existence attempting to destroy them. Without Tenno interference, the Fomorian battleships are literally unstoppable and will allow the Grineer to completely dominate the Corpus. I mean, I don't know how to say it with like to get the point across strong enough. The Fomorian ships are hacks. They're complete bullshit, and they are unstoppable. The Corpus are completely fucked. So let's move on to the conclusion now, because better military leaders, better ships, it's kind of hard to lose with those two things on your side. After comparing many parts of the militaries and civilizations of the Corpus and Grineer, I find the conclusion to be complete and utter Grineer domination. Did you guys expect anything different? Look at my channel, look at all the Grineer videos, compare it to the Corpus videos. There is one Corpus video, there is 20 Grineer videos. Who did you guys think I was going to pick? Due to the elite leadership of the Grineer, along with their unstoppable Fomorians, I find it extremely unlikely that the Corpus could unite in time to mobilize an effective force that was capable of slowing their advance. After the Fomorians completely eliminate all of the Corpus Navy, space stations, and gas cities, they'll likely fly above planets and launch non-stop ghoul shock troops to completely ravish Corpus populations. And of course, since the Grineer will completely control space with their unstoppable fleet, the Corpus soldiers and people falling victim to Grineer shock troops will never receive help. Without the ability to seemingly mass-produce Fomorians, this fight would be incredibly close, and I could even see the Corpus winning in some scenarios. However, with how completely unfair Fomorians are, without Tenno help, the Corpus stand literally no chance. This is like the Reapers invading in Mass Effect, except there isn't a turn-off switch, just impending destruction. Along with having the superior navy, Grineer will also have the superior tactics and lead a more unified front. There's really no path for Corpus victory. Perhaps if the Corpus were more united and had more military-minded leaders, they could find a way to combat the Fomorians with maybe sneak attacks or applying pressure at the right spot. But unfortunately, they aren't united, and their leaders aren't military, just rich people. The only military leader they might have is the sergeant, and well, if you're relying on the sergeant, shit. It honestly sucks that this whole video is essentially meaningless, because the allies of the Corpus have just don't matter. Their superior equipment won't matter. Their ships won't matter. All because of the existence of Fomorians, the most broken piece of technology besides Warframes in the Origin system. And it's weird how they can mass produce them so effectively, with apparently the Grineer producing thousands of Fomorians, during the event where we had to destroy the cores. So I mean, you know they're going to crank these ships out. So RIP to the Corpus. It was a good try. Not really though. You're going to get absolutely shitted on by the awesome Grineer, and it won't even be close. Anyway, that's all I got for this video. As you can probably tell, it took me a while to make. It's a new type of video for me, and this is the longest script at least I've ever written. I don't know about longest video, but it is the longest script. I wanted to really give a fair breakdown of both sides' abilities without going into every individual stat and unit, so if you guys think I accomplished that. Let me know if you agree with my conclusion. I imagine most of you will, because I personally don't really see a path to Corpus victory myself, but if you disagree, please let me know and give me a few reasons in the comments. Before leaving, I want to give a huge shout out to my members, Jay and Sign Up King 5000. They're amazing and cool and handsome, and if you become a member, you can also become those things. If you want to support the channel even further, then you already have by watching this video all the way, because thank you so much for making it this far into the video. You've really been listening to me yap for a while now. Think about becoming a member too. Anyway, that's all I got. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys are in the next one or watch the next one. You're probably not going to be in the video, to be honest, but I hope you come watch the next one. Stay blessed, stay safe. Thank you guys again, and shout out the Grineers for being awesome.